Today on TOKKANTE, let's have a bit of fun. Let's do a personality test. Well, not really, but based on a few personalities, I will tell you which watch most likely fits you. Hi everyone and welcome, I'm Ben. So let's have a bit of fun with this one, okay? Don't take it too seriously. But recently I was looking at those personality tests which are supposed to match dog breeds with your personality and your lifestyle. And I even saw a show on the BBC actually trying to look at people's lifestyles and personalities and which dog was right for them. So I thought, well, why not do that with watches? I used to be a recruiter, so when I used to interview people, I would always look at which watch was on their wrist and whether I thought it kind of matched their personality after talking to them for a while. So we're not going to look at watch collectors' personality, not looking at people who are only into chronograph, only into divers, and which diver is right for them. No, just overall personality. Okay, so we'll kind of look at 7 of them, and then I'll give you a few watches that I think would match their personalities. Maybe one more attainable one, and then let's go crazy, one very expensive one. So the first type is the most predictable one, is the risk-adverse personality type, or the people who usually turn out to be the investor type. So in Hong Kong, I met a lot of these people who are in accounting or finance or business controlling, the type of people who want their career to be at a certain place in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. They want stability, predictability. So which types of watches will fit this personality type? Well, it's the same thing. You want to look at predictable watches in terms of performance. So watches that will either, keep their value, maintain their value, or increase in value. So maybe under $5,000 for the ones who are just starting. Look at my video with investment watches under $5,000 here. But then what I saw a lot of when I look at their wrists is, Rolex Submariner, obviously. Or maybe a little more senior, then you look at a Royal Oak Jumbo 15202 or a Patek 5711, for example. Those are safe watches if you bought them at the right price, which means not now. But then other than that, you could also look at an Omega 321, for example, Speedmaster 321. This is a watch that's not a limited edition, but with a very limited output annually. So they'll feel comfortable that this is something that will maintain its value and there'll always be a market for it. But then if you have, next level money, a good watch for you would be going vintage Rolex. Something like, go crazy, something like a double red Submariner with a tropical dial and a ghost bezel. That's something that will always have a market and that will always be in demand. This is, auction-worthy kind of vintage Rolex. So these would be watches that a risk-adverse person would feel comfortable spending money on. The second personality type is the contrarian. So what is a contrarian? Well, usually it's someone who opposes or rejects the general opinion or current practice or likes to go against the grain on purpose. That's why he's a contrarian. So what would be a good watch I would recommend for someone like that? I would say, go quartz first. Because usually within the watch collector community, a lot of people kind of, sniff at quartz. So I would say, a good watch for you will be a Grand Seiko quartz. Something like a SBGN 005, the GMT, for example, with a 9F86 quartz. So it's a very good watch. But a lot of people will look at that and say, oh, it's just a quartz. But for the contrarian, that's something he would actually buy on purpose and be proud of because it's not automatic and because it's not even a spring drive. Another watch for someone who's a contrarian, I would say an expensive luxury watch with a basic ETA movement. Because that's another thing that watch collectors, will dislike. They will say, why would you pay, 10,000 or more for a luxury watch and he only has like a basic ETA 2824. So the contrarian will say, well, that's exactly why he will buy it on purpose. So a good thing for him would be Frank Muller Crazy Hour. That watch actually has a 2892 ETA in it. It's nothing crazy really about the Crazy Hour, but that's something that goes for like over $6,000. So a lot of people like to criticize Frank Muller for that. So the contrarian will buy exactly that on purpose. Or if you want to stay with Rolex, usually the contrarian will not consider Rolex or Tudor or Omega because they're just mass market brands. But if you want to stay with Rolex, then buy the Rolex that nobody else wants. The good watch for the contrarian is the Rolex Cellini. Buy a Cellini Moonphase, and you can actually find that one in store. Very good watches for a contrarian. The third personality type is the lover of craftsmanship. So this is someone who loves beautiful handmade things, like for example handmade furniture, or the type of person who will buy a tailor-made suit or shirt. So what watch would I recommend for someone like that? Staying below $10,000, I will go, independent, like German independent. Watch my video about German watchmaking here, and you'll find that two of my favorite ones will be Kudoke. The Kudoke 2 from Stefan Kudoke is a watch that is mostly handmade by Stefan Kudoke himself, with a hand-engraved balance cork, and on the dial side you have a frosted dial, Breguet style, hand-engraved, the 24-hour disc, beautiful work, handmade, that you can find under 10K. Or also Johann Benzinger, for example, who's someone who specializes in skeletonization. Skeletonization is something that the lover of craftsmanship will appreciate. So then if he has the budget, I will go all the way, and I will go Audemars Piguet Royal Oak double balance open worked. The skeleton dial of AP is the best in the business, and it requires the most skilled craftsmen that are working at AP. So if you got the money, that's the one for you. The fourth type is the artistic personality type. So in a way this is related to the lover of craftsmanship, but less on the technical skills of craftsmanship, but more on the artistic side of things. So for someone like that, what would I recommend? Well, if you're into modern art, then I will go with Alain Silberstein. He was a French interior designer / architect, and then he turned into a watch designer, and I think in 1987 he released the Chrono Bauhaus and the Chrono 2. So this is very out there. I know this is something that Tim Mosso of Watchbox enjoys a lot. If you are into modern art, then I think this is something that you would appreciate. Now, if you're more a traditionalist, but you're still an artist, then look at Vacheron Constantin Les Cabinotiers. This is really the collection from Vacheron Constantin that justifies them still being in the Holy Trinity. Some people ask, why is VC a Holy Trinity brand? I mean, it seems like they are not on the same level as Patek and AP. Well, look at Les Cabinotiers. This is absolutely amazing work. This is really, handmade watches that you can actually customize and work with them to create a unique artistic creation. Another one that I would consider is Jacques Hédreau. Jacques Hédreau Automata bird repeater, tropical bird repeater even, I think. Jacques Hédreau, one of the oldest brands. I know Blancpain is 1735 is considered the oldest brand, but Jacques Hédreau is, I think, 1738. It's pretty much as old as Blancpain. And one thing it's famous for, and a lot of people don't know, is their automatons or automata, when you have more than one. They're created, if you are into mechanical movements and traditional watchmaking, then I'm sure you know of automatas and how they work and why they're so fascinating. And I think in 1775, Louis Jacques Hédreau, the son of the founder, was invited at Versailles and had an audience with Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, and presented 3 automatas, and I think one of which was playing the piano, and they were absolutely astonished by what they could do. And this is part of the history of Jacques Hédreau. Even to this day, I think they still have one of them, I think at least, or maybe they have 3 of them still in their museum, but only one of them still works, and it still performs once in a while. And you can find some of that inspiration or DNA in their watches, in their automata collection, where you actually have the birds that will move. There's a garden version of that also. Absolutely beautiful. Jacques Hédreau deserves a lot more attention than it's getting now. So that's a perfect watch for the artist. The 5th type is the hipster. So what is a hipster? We hear this term a lot, but a hipster is someone who is effortlessly cool and trendy and fashionable, but at the same time outside of the mainstream. So you have to be careful what watch I would recommend for a hipster. I would go with Nomos. Nomos, basically any Nomos. But specifically I will go with the model that was just updated for this year, the TOKKANTE Neomatic 41 update. That has a new, very playful kind of date around the dial. That's a perfect watch for a hipster. Or if it's a hipster driver, I will go with the Autobahn. Also very cool watch. Another brand that I would recommend for a hipster is Ming. So Ming, it's actually a Malaysian photographer turned watch designer, and I think he released his first watch in 2016, and the 1901 and the 1902 that were immediately sold out. And it seems like every watch Ming releases is immediately sold out. That brand has just exploded, and that's the perfect brand also for the hipster because it comes from a photographer and designed kind of DNA. Hipsters also love anything vintage, basically, vintage cars, vintage clothing. So what I would recommend is vintage Rolex Datejust, preferably gold and preferably on a strap, not on a bracelet. So it's very, Christian from Theo and Harris, a vintage Datejust on a strap, very hipster. Second to last, our sixth type is the techie. So the techie is someone who enjoys all the technologies that go into making watches, whether it's the movement itself or most likely into the case materials and the different technologies that are incorporated into the watches. So a perfect brand for someone like that I would recommend is Zin. Whether he wants a diver and he goes with a Zin UX or a Zin U2 for a mechanical version of it, or a chronograph, you could go with a Zin 757. Those are watches that incorporate a lot of Zin technology with a diapole, diamond coated escapement and tegimented steel, with black hardened coating and the argon field dials and all those different kinds of technologies Zin has developed that you find in just one watch. Those three watches are the ones that have the most of Zin technology, and the techie will love this. If you want to go like way up in price, I would recommend a brand called Recence from Belgium. Pretty young brand, started in 2010, but they do specifically with their Type 3 and Type 5. They are the only watch brand that has an oil field dial with a mechanical movement. And it's very interesting what they do, and the display, how the hours is displayed when it doesn't even have a crown. You turn basically a kind of a key from the back side of the watch, and when you read the time, the whole dial will move. I mean, the whole thing is this is a type of watch that I also enjoy personally. The techie will go nuts for this type of watch. And last but not least, the obnoxious personality type, or the douchebag. So that's the guy who wants his watch to be loud and crazy and big and look at my expensive watch, and the type of guy who drives a rented Lamborghini in Miami. So he doesn't really care about in-house movements. It can be a pretty pedestrian watch as long as it's big and loud and expensive. So what would I recommend for someone like this? Well, I have a perfect brand for you that I'm sure all of you are thinking about: Hublot. So now, I know a lot of people like to crap on Hublot, and I know they are doing, some good things with material science, and they even have developed, their own in-house movement with the Unico. But no, let's go with something like the Big Bang, I think Jungle, Commando, Desert, Carat. That's the loud ass watch that is perfect for the obnoxious type, okay? So another one that I can think of is something that I just saw yesterday, released by a company I had never heard of, Design Individual Watches, and they do customization of Rolex. So they did this model. They only have, it's a limited edition of 5, so good luck with finding 5 people who want this, but that would be a good option for you if you don't want your run-of-the-mill Rolex and you want to be as obnoxious as possible with your Daytona. Or then if you have the cash, go all the way and go with Richard Mille. So, with Richard Mille, same thing. You could go with pretty much any Richard Mille in the catalog. It's not so much about watches with Richard Mille. It's about the lifestyle. It's about being part of the club. It's about, $1 million watches. So, but if we had to pick, I think I would recommend something like the RM25. I think the Adventure Tourbillon, because of course, you need a tourbillon when you go on an adventure. Or maybe the RM32 with a chrono diver that is probably, I don't know, the ugliest, most obnoxious diver I've ever seen. So good watches for this, this type of personality. So these were some of the personality types that I have personally met before. I know we could do some more. We could do the traditionalist, we could do, I don't know, the stingy type, we could do the risk taker, or we could do the social media obsessed. Now that would be a good one. Let me know, if you have ideas. Maybe we can do another installment of these. But you know, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. I hope this was just a bit of fun. You know, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.